So, inshallah, we will start this afternoon session with the first session that will be, let's say, a presentation or just comments or comments or presentation that will be that will be given by some students. I think this afternoon we will have 3, and then the last session will be just an open discussion. So the 3 students that are supposed to give their presentation today, they can come here, inshallah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Harun, and I come from Cape Town, South Africa, and I'm very happy to be here. And I'd like to say thank you to the professors who gave us presentations this morning. They were very stimulating and quite tough, particularly the first one, but we'll have some comments on that a bit later. I'd like to start off by telling you that last night we had a little discussion in the foyer of the hotel, and I went up and I went to sleep and I had a dream. And I dreamt that our group was together and we decided to make a garden. And the discussion was what trees we were going to put into the garden, how many trees, and where the trees were going to be positioned. And that was the end. And then we went into discussion, and that was the end of the dream. And I woke up this morning and I thought that was quite wonderful if it was a premonition of how we would conduct ourselves today. Good. I'm going to be quite brief. I want to start off with a quotation which is relevant to the topic that we're discussing today. And maybe we can comment on the quotation. It goes like this. I'm not going to say where it comes from until I've read the quotation. Until Muslim countries and Muslim communities in the West allow their people to express themselves freely, without fear of reprisal, it is unlikely that the Muslim world will be able to think creatively and again become a center of science and knowledge as it used to be in the early centuries of Islam. And when I read this quotation, I thought it was quite interesting, but I must tell you that it came from the Gatestone Institute, which is definitely not a friend of Islam. And so the question that came out of it is, when we talk about creative ijtihad, are we thinking about reaction or proaction? I think this is quite important, that we do not react to things that are coming out of the West, that whatever we do is from ourselves and is proactive. So perhaps we could develop that discussion a little later on. Just a few questions that came to my mind. Why is change necessary? Are the present socio-political, economic, geopolitical, moral, and cultural conditions of the Ummah acceptable? Is change and therefore independent thinking inevitable? That was something that I was thinking about. Another one, have the opinions of classical scholars moved us further or closer from the Quran? That was the last one. All right, and the last one is, what is my role in all of this? I'm not a scholar, so how far can I as an individual engage in creative ijtihad? All right, now we had quite an extensive discussion at lunchtime, and my colleagues will take over from there.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Yelena, and this is my 3rd CILE. And my first comment is that again, as I mentioned last summer, I would like to, first of all, to thank all our presenters, all professors, and the whole CILE team for what you are doing. Yet my first comment is that what you are doing, and it's really great thing, still it represents the way of thinking and efforts of the minority of the Muslim world. So it is very much needed. And it is very much important, particularly this topic for this summer, Ijtihad. What is it? It is up to date topic to be discussed within the Muslim world, first of all. And all the presentations, all talks, they are of very high academic level and they are worthy of any international conference. Yet we would like to ask you to have compassion on us, of students of summer school. Because first of all, not all of us are of the same academic level and have the same knowledge as you have. And it is obvious, even the third year I'm attending, that you're operating with terms and definitions which you assume is well known to everyone. Still, we would like to ask you to make definitions of things you are talking about more clear. And to define Arabic terms which might not be understandable for all speakers, for all those who attend this summer school, because some people are not familiar with Arabic. Otherwise, you need to give more homework for people, because most of the concepts you presented today, they were based on those articles which were sent as pre-session reading. And that was very much helpful to follow the development of your thought. Also, the examples in terms of clarifying what you mean would be also very helpful, and you promised to give us more examples in the afternoon, particularly about the application of the revelation. That's Sheikh Lazhar, we are waiting for you. And about defining the concepts, because we heard about the Muslim ideals, Muslim messages. Again, that would be very much helpful to define them, what it meant. Even through the whole history of Islamic thought, they were modified and they were changed or changed in a positive sense in the progress. About these concepts, another thing is coming out into mind. When you talking about concepts, should they be taken as universal concepts, those concepts you operate with? What I mean universal, because nowadays we are facing a situation that Muslim world is entering the West. And Muslim people who are living in the West, they are living in quite different context than Muslims who are living in the Muslim majority countries. And if we are talking that the context is important for ijtihad, for interpretation, we have to define that, because, for example, the cross-disciplinary ijtihad, which was defined as embodiment of monotheistic vision, no separation between spiritual life and daily life, in my opinion, it would be very difficult to implement in the Western countries, because the West, it's not the Christian world anymore. And Muslims who are living there, they are facing a real problem, not only to be aliens to that culture of post-enlightenment era, of circular world, and in addition that they are perceived as aliens themselves. And those Muslims who are living in Muslim majority countries where there is no separation between your spiritual life and daily life, between religion and your daily routine. So that might be also very helpful to define if there is any difference in applying this concept in the West and in the East. And should be any adjustments when we are talking about those concepts, including Ijtihad in the Western culture, in the Western context, and in the context of Muslim majority countries. And we will continue with this, in particular, the creative Ijtihad.
Hi, I'm Huda. I'm from Morocco. I live currently in Paris. First of all, just wanted to complete my colleagues on the when we were asking for more definition, just give examples of terms. For example, it was mentioned the Muslim ideals. Maybe just give examples of what the Muslim ideals are to make sure we all talk about the same things. Or what you put behind the freedom of religion, for example, because depending on how we look at it, it was present since the beginning. For example, I mentioned freedom of religion for other communities to have their own religion within the Muslim community, and that was from the very first beginning when the Prophet moved to Medina, where Jewish community was still there. So that was present from the very beginning and not new concepts, etc. Just on the conditions of Ijtihad, we felt like the question from our colleague was not clearly answered on what conditions needed for a person to be mujtahid. And also that the discussion around that raised one thought is that there's two types of Ijtihad, the personal Ijtihad and Ijtihad. And we felt like when you were talking about Ijtihad is more for someone, for mujtahid to study and then be able to communicate that to others and maybe make fatwas, but to advise people and share their knowledge. But I think there's another kind of Ijtihad, which is the personal one. For example, I want to take a loan, and the thoughts differ on that, so I go and check and study and see what everyone says, and then I make my own decision, but I don't force other people to make it, or I don't make it the right decision to make. It's the decision I made for my own life, and I can share it as an example, and just as an example, but not tell anyone, because I don't have all the knowledge to be able to do that. So do you see it as there's two types of Ijtihad? And if we take that position, it also means that someone who's mujtahid on wider vision, when he's able to give lectures to people on what he thinks. So if we believe or if we take action on whatever they say, well, then we're muqallid from that point. So we're not mujtahid anymore. So kind of where one fits with the other, according to you. I think that would be good to precise that. And also what with one point where we still had a question on so you mentioned that Ijtihad the doors of Ijtihad were closed. If you could maybe precise why were they closed at the time? And also the difference where it was mentioned the revelation and with the example of the stoning, and that was in the revelation, everyone was, no, it's not. What's revelation? What you refer to as revelation? Is it the only Quran? Then at the discussion with Arzu earlier, she mentioned that there are two types. Well, there's the Quran, but in the Hadith, in the Sunnah, there's the revelation part and there's the Hadith part. And the revelation being, for example, on how to pray and how to wash ourselves before praying, which were direct revelations but were not in the Quran, versus the Hadith, which were sayings of the Prophet and were not actual revelation. So where that line was not, I didn't know that before, and that could be helpful for, I think, everyone to precise what a revelation is. And the clarity between the Quran and the Sunnah, when we look at both, should it be in an order? Should we look more at the Sunnah or more at the Quran? And how does the context come with both? Because the Sunnah was according to the context of the time. And finally, one last question on the creative ijtihad and how to bring unity within the Muslim community using creative ijtihad, or is there any other ways maybe to bring unity, because we feel like that's what we need most today. Thank you.
Just one more comment. We all talking during the lunchtime agreed that we appreciate very much the last comment of Dr. Ghaly about being convinced. And in my opinion, again, it shows that you as CILE, as a team, you are getting out of the boundaries of the majority of Muslim world. Because and we discussed actually that yesterday with students, and one of them mentioned that as soon as people getting out of Muslim majority countries, they see in the West quite different reality. Muslim thinkers in the West, they more free to express their ideas and, using this term, doing ijtihad than in the East. Because for the majority of Muslims, again, you don't need to be convinced. That's a very progressive and I would say revolutionary idea. For most Muslims, the idea is don't question what your sheikh or your imam says, just follow. For modern world, for creative ijtihad, the matter of convincing, being convincing and being convinced is very important. And for that purpose, you need to, let's say, switch on your mind, to get out of your comfort zone when you are told what to do and be satisfied with that, but to put your personal efforts, trying to understand what is written in all the sources, whether it is the Quran, Sunnah, Hadith, to use personal efforts to reconcile what you learn personally and what other people say, and to come to your personal conclusion. That is absolutely beautiful about the Muslim world because, for example, if you contrast that with Christianity where there is a hierarchy and, let's say, a pope who tells you what to do and that is the consensus for everyone and you should follow. In the Muslim world, there is no such a hierarchy. And it is very important for every single believer to make decision based on several reasons. And actually it is very important to point out whether the creative ijtihad could be used to create the unity within the Muslim community. Because nowadays there is a huge separation, not only between Shias and Sunnis, but even within these groups. And it is very creatively used to keep this separation. So creative ijtihad could be the tool which helps to create the unity within the Muslim community. So, and this thing could be elaborated even further.
Just one comment, sorry, I forgot about what, just to complement what my colleague was saying and about what Dr. Ghaly was saying earlier, is that when he was saying that it's a matter of conviction and that it's a matter of qualification as well. If you're not qualified, people will not listen to you. I think that's not true all the time. Let's take the example of ISIS. We all know they're not qualified. There's no need to argue about that, but people are following them. So it also depends. If we say that we assume that everyone has the same intellectual capabilities and are used to think for themselves, whereas today, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have those capacities. We have, I think, two kinds of them. The older generation, where they were just used to apply religion as a dogma and just do whatever they're told to do, so they won't think for themselves before applying. They would just, be completely in the taqlid in the very first sense of it. And then we have a lot of youth as well, and I see that in France from the suburbs, but not only, who don't have a very high level of education, and they're really in the application, literal application of whatever they're told, and it's just they were not told to think for themselves, to be critical of what they're told, and it's just that intellectual capacity is really that one not exploited to their most. So I think a big thing to invest on is the education of our kids and the future generations, to allow them to think for themselves, and then we'll be able to have creative ijtihad for everyone, and everyone being able to apply it. But today it's not the reality yet, at least. Thank you.
I would like to make a brief comment, because we also discussed this thing during lunchtime. I do agree with you, and Professor Ramadan and CILE Center, they also talk about that, but we have to take into consideration the following thing. Reactive or proactive, yes, it is the personal choice of those Muslims who are Western citizens nowadays. We have to take into consideration that those Western societies, they still react also. And for example, the situation in the Western countries is different where Muslims are living now, and here in Spain, it used to be traditional Muslim country, and Al-Andalus, that used to be a part of Islamic Caliphate. And now they have to take that into consideration. I mean, Western people. For example, the situation in Russia is quite different. Islam has always been a traditional religion there, and the situation there is different. We can't compare, and we can't take lessons from the West to apply to Russian context. The same, the Western countries can't take lessons from Russia, but still they can learn from principles how to coexist peacefully, how to complement these two different cultures, and how to build on that. So, again, that's a matter of personal decision, not only for Muslims, but that's also the personal decision for Eastern people. Western people. It's not an invasion. It's not a reconquista. It's a part of global world. We like to talk about globalization in terms of economics, culture, but somehow people stop talking about globalization in terms of religion. But that's a part of the process. It's a mixture. And as far as economy is adjusting to these things, people have to start thinking about adjusting to live and I don't like coexist, but live together with people of different religious faiths. So, yeah, I agree with you. Thank you very much. We just want to be taken correctly. We are not talking about unity in uniformity. Islam has never been one solid body of beliefs, and that's what mentioned by all speakers, and that is the unique and beautiful thing about Islam. The modern world started talking about postmodern and multiple thinking only now. For Islam, it has always been the case. For mazhabs and different opinions has never been a problem for Islam. And what you mentioned, that's correct. Political unity is very important for Muslim world. But very often, this unity is barriered by pointing out to religious differences. So now the point is whether Muslims should recognize themselves within the society that they are very happy with this difference, with this unity, in different opinions which are making like a mosaic or a puzzle, a big picture with different pieces which fit its own place. Or they want to follow a Wahhabi, let's say, tradition that only my Islam is correct. So these decisions should be made also. So to come to, I don't know, maybe that's one of the examples of taqlid, to imitate the foundation of the early Islam, when everyone was acknowledging difference and was happy with that, and not making, pointing out that you're not Muslim if you're not following my opinion, or to come to a different position.
One comment on the fact that most people in the Muslim countries can think for themselves. I think that's true from the ones coming from the cities who received an education but go to a mountain where someone dropped out from school at the age of 7 or 8. They are not able to do that because they were not given the capacities to do that. And in order to be able to think for yourself, you need to be educated in order to do so. And today, the education is one-way thing where we like give you on how it should be, etc. And students are not, or pupils like younger are not given the power or the space to think for themselves. I mean, that's for the ones who do attend the school, and then there's a big majority of not even being able to attend schools. And I think education is really big subjects in the Muslim world.